Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Buddhist Biohacker. I am Lisa Gunshore, and I am your host as always. And welcome to everyone who's joining in the live stream. You can absolutely use that chat box to the right to be able to communicate with us, share your comments and your questions. So welcome in. Everybody I see you joining in, just welcome in. And if you are listening later on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or Google Play, you can absolutely continue this conversation by joining us here on our community page on Buddhist Biohacker YouTube, or you can join our private forum at MeWe.com, and it's Buddhist Biohacker Forum. So I am very excited because we are producing our first live stream from my new office, which I'm really happy about, and posted about it on social media. So it is the first time you've seen me not huddled in a corner of a basement or in my kitchen or in my bedroom. So this is our new official space for Buddhist Biohacker. And I'm really excited about that because I'm out in the natural light, which we couldn't get enough of right now. And I'm also really happy. I can't believe it's already August, actually. And the first Tuesday of every month, we have an incredible featured program called Living Yoga with Satyam. And welcome back, Satyam.
Oh, great to be here, Lisa. Wonderful always to join you and partake in your wonderful podcast.
Oh my gosh, we just love having you so much. And I could talk to you for hours. And I saw what your theme or your topic of today is, and I'm really excited for that too. So I think we dive right in. And I don't know about you, but I just cannot believe it's August.
Yeah,
Like,
amazing.
this year has flown by already. I'm like, whoa, it's going to be fall. The air is starting to change here in Colorado. It's feeling cooler and like, fall's coming. But why don't you share what your topic is for today?
Sure. Today's topic shall be biopsychology. The chakra system and biopsychology, which everyone's maybe like, well, what's that? And it is a very unique approach to looking at how our human existence and experience and our personality is affected by our chakras. And it's a very detailed yet also evolving field. And it's quite, sometimes people think yoga is just bending. I'm touching my toes. I'm not touching my toes. I'm bending my back. I'm twisting my spine. I'm doing this and that. But there's a whole subtle underbody of what's going on in that yogic lifestyle of meditation and yoga poses. And one of the underpinnings of that whole thing is biopsychology. And that's what we're going to discuss today.
Oh, wow. I'm excited. Oh my gosh. Well, dig in. Let's dig in. I'm excited to hear about this.
So basically, with our human existence, we've got two spheres. It's really three spheres. Physical, they say human life is trifarious: physical, psychic, spiritual. But if we break it down into very two basic spheres, we can say we've got our physical body and our psychic body. And the physical body is visible, it's palpable. So part of our body is visible, right? Our toes, our shoulders, elbows, right? And everybody understands that we have that we're visible beings. And then part of our body is invisible, or part of our human experience is invisible. And that's basically the mind. The mind is invisible. And so either you have to say that you don't have a mind and yet you're just a physical being, or you have to recognize the idea that we have something within us that's invisible. That's actually like the whole drivetrain to our whole physical body. Because if someone says to you, hey, show me your mind, and you put your hands in your pockets and you start grabbing for things, but you can't grab it. Where if someone says to me, show me your pen, show me your shirt, show me your toes, all those things you can show. But a person can't show their mind. And then the question becomes, does that mean they don't have a mind? Or is it because it doesn't have material expression, yet it's very essential to who we are? And from the yogic perspective, the mind is invisible, but it is the entire foundation of who we are as of human beings. That's why the word for human being in Sanskrit is manush. And the root word of manush is man. It means mind. We're psychic beings with physical expression. We're not physical beings. We're psychic beings. That's why when someone becomes unconscious, their physical body is still there. And you can touch it, but if their way of receiving information is through the mind. So if someone's unconscious and you can put a pen in their hand and say, hey, there's a pen in your hand, they will not recognize it. And later on, they won't also know, even though they had a physical pen in their physical hand. Because if it's not recognized by the mind, then it's like it does not compute. It's not working that way. So every expression has to be filtered through the mind. Even if someone's in a room and they're daydreaming, but there's all sorts of conversation going on, but their mind is not focused on that conversation. That's kind of like space out, right? Hey, the space out kid in the class, right? Repeat what I just said. That sound reached your ears, but your mind was not focused on it, and you can't repeat because mind was elsewhere. So we are mental beings with physical expression. And the more the mind, and that mind has complete control over the physical body, or it should anyway, ideally in best case scenario. So then we've got this whole underpinning of mind that's invisible within us, that's in charge of the whole physical faculty. And we need to know more about that. And one of the ways to know about it is through the chakra system. And chakras, which everybody's not everybody, but lots of people are familiar with the word chakra. The word itself means family. It means circle. It means wheel. Like sometimes if you go, like the cycle of creation in Sanskrit is known as Brahma Chakra. It's a cycle. And then there's also like Dharma Chakra. It's a congregation of spiritual aspirants. So family or community. But then just by itself, it has a meaning of chakra, and it means psychic energy center. It's a psychic energy center. So just as we have a mind, that invisible mind, we also have psychic energy centers throughout the body. It's just like your physical body, you've got a skeletal system, there are bones all over. You've got the circulatory system with arteries and veins and arterioles, and the respiratory system. It has all different parts. Similarly, our psychic system also has multiple parts. And from the yogic perspective, those parts are known as chakras. And so,
oh, sorry to interrupt, but I have a question about this view back up here. I have a question for you about the chakras, because that is something as a clairvoyant that I've read for years, being able to see through those cylindrical discs in the body. And, there's 7 major ones. And within the Tibetan practice, Tibetan shamanism, there's actually 9 that they work with. But there's actually 188 centers in the body. And they talk about that in Chinese medicine. I'm just curious what your thoughts are in what you've studied and learned about how many different ones there are. Does it even matter? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, what you said matches up with a lot what the yogic system is, what I've understood the yogic system to be, is that there's 7 main chakra points. And in fact, we can kind of dive into those and explore. We can do that. So the 7 main chakra points are along the spine. The base one is at the very tailbone. It's known as the Muladhara chakra. and Mool in Sanskrit means root. And then in the suprapubis region is the Svadhisthana chakra, and that's known as the second chakra. And then, and I'm just listing them now, and then we'll go through them in more detail. The third chakra point is right at the navel, and it's known as the Manipur chakra. Now, these are all along the spine, but I'm just giving the height as using the front side to identify the height. Then the fourth chakra is the Anahat chakra, right at the heart and behind. And then the fifth chakra is the Vishuddha chakra at the throat. And then the sixth chakra, this is the Trikuti point, and inside, deep behind that is the Agyan chakra, the sixth chakra. And then the seventh chakra is the Agyan chakra at the crown of the head. And then the Sahasrara chakra. Sixth one is the Agyan chakra, which is known as the seat of the mind, where our I feeling is. Right? If you tell someone, look at me, if you're talking, look at me, and they look at your knee or they look at your toe, you're not going to say that, you won't consider that they're looking at you. When you say, look at me, you mean right here at this point, then that's the Agyan chakra, because that's where we think we reside in this cosmos. And it is where we reside in this cosmos. Our mental, it's right in the center of the head, the Agyan chakra. It's the pituitary gland, essentially. And then the crown chakra, pineal gland, Sahasrara chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus chakra. And then beneath that, you can say there's Guru chakra. And then tip of the nose is Lalana chakra, which would make it from 7 to 9. I'm not sure if that's, the 7 are generally agreed upon. I don't know if when you say 9 and I say 9, if that matches up with Tibetan Buddhism's theory, but that's what I know of the 7 and then ultimately 9 chakras.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think every culture has its own system once you get past those 7. In Tibetan Buddhism, or shamanism, really, it's actually, older. It's not necessarily related to Vajrayana Buddhism. It's actually related to the bone tradition. But when you look at the bone tradition and Tibetan shamanism, the 8th is actually up above, and then the 9th is even higher. And the 8th is about your relationship to the cosmos, and the 9th is about the cosmos relationship to yourself. So it's even more interesting. But what you're talking about with the nose is interesting. I'd be curious. I mean, we'll get through the 7, I think, but I'd be curious about the chakra point here, because there's so much work done here, breath work done here, both in yoga and in yantra yoga. And I mean, just the process of meditation and breathing through the nostrils, and that could probably be its own show.
Right, absolutely. Which actually we can, next month is about conscious breathing. We can touch on that.
Oh, perfect. I love it. Oh my God.
So with these 7 chakra points, they hover, the glands hover around the chakra points. And so there's a very keen relationship between the glands and the chakras, and that those glands those secretions of the various glands have a huge effect on our human personality, right? If we're nervous, we start sweating. If they're all different types of things, and that's why even in the West, they consider the pituitary gland the master gland. That's kind of relatively new in the West. But that's the Agyan chakra, the controlling center of the human mind, or one of the main faculties of human mind. And so even then, people may think, what is all this invisible chakra system? What is this? It's not, this is just make believe. You just made it up. It doesn't have any value. It's okay, fine. Well, I can accept it, but it's not real. What's real is bones, organs, glands, that I accept, right? But then the point becomes, what's the universal faculty? Like, there's certain themes across different cultures. And why is that people come up with the very same idea? For instance, with the heart, almost all countries and worlds, like if you touch your heart, and you can't communicate with someone, they know that you mean some type of compassionate, some type of sincere hello. You know, if you touch your foot, it doesn't have the same effect. But if you touch your heart, if someone's talking to you and you can see that they're crying or they're telling a heartfelt story, even if you touch your heart, it means I understand your feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And throughout poetry, throughout the world, there's always references to the heart. And people think, oh, that's so sweet, right? No one writes a poem saying, I love you with all my gallbladder, right? People don't write that. That doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. But if you say, I love you with all my heart, and across any country, any language, that's meaningful. And so then the point becomes, all right, the heart is value. It's full of compassion and generosity and all those things. What happens? And a husband might say to his wife, I love you with my heart, right? So all this, but what happens if someone gets a heart transplant? Let's say someone goes in, gets a successful transplant, come back. Then does he no longer love his spouse? He loves the woman of the heart from where that body came from? No. The heart is just a physical pump. That's all it does. It doesn't change one's sentimental feeling, one's tenderness, one's compassion, one's generosity, one's love. It doesn't change that. You can take someone else's heart, put it in your body. You'll be the same human personality, just you'll have a better pump to pump the blood through. So when people say heart, what they mean is that psychic energy center, the Anahata Chakra, which is very close to the heart. You can feel it. It has an effect. So people think that the heart is the beating of the heart, but the heart's a pump and it's a chakra point that is related with all those feelings and human sensitivities of the human heart. And so that is proof that although the glands and the organs are around the various chakra points, they don't complain, they don't control the psychic qualities of those that the chakras do, right? And so when it's agreed upon that there's a feeling there, but that feeling is not the heart, the physical pump, it's the Anahata Chakra. That's what people are talking about. And everybody feels that across all lands and countries and regions. And that's further proof that we're not physical beings, that we're psychic beings, and that there's a chakra that exists in that heart. Because otherwise you take out that heart. If that heart had everything, then one's psychic personality would be different, but it isn't. So the Anahata Chakra. So let's just go quickly. Okay, well, why chakra points? Why are these chakra points there? Did someone just decide that they would be there? Well, there's an anatomy of it. Just like there's an anatomy of our skeletal system, of our respiratory system. If you you take a biology class each month or each marking period, you'll study those various types of systems. Well, the chakra system also. And this is where the chakra points are. Pretend you have a long tube or a canal from the tailbone right up to the crown of the head. And then you've got these special nerves, or what the yogis call nadis. And there's an Pingala nadi, and Inga nadi. And so Ida nadi and Pingala nadi. And what they do is they're like a double helix, like we study in genetics, that they start separate and then they make eights, creates, and where those two nadis cross the Sushumna canal. So now you got this long pipe and then this crisscrossing, and where the intersection of those 3 points, that's where the chakra is. And they go up, they just coil like this all along the spine. And from the Agyan chakra, the Ida nadi comes out through the left nostril, and the Pingala nadi comes out through the right nostril. And that's why breathing is so important. When you're breathing, and this also shows that there's some type of subtle faculty going on inside our human experience. When we're concentrating and we're involved in psychic pursuits, spiritual pursuits, then the left nostril will be dominant, because that Ida nadi is dominant. And when we're involved in eating, physical endeavors, then the right nostril will be dominant. And that's with every human being everywhere. that when you're involved in study, and so that also shows that there's an invisible faculty going on that has some type of physical expression, and one can test that of which nostrils. So it depends what we're doing of which nostril is dominant. So anyway, that's a little bit about where the chakras are and why they're there, and the subtle energy system within. And so then we've got that each chakra has certain qualities or it's in charge of something. And the very base chakra, the root chakra, is it controls the solid portion of our body, and it's solid portion. And then the next chakra up, the Svadhisthana chakra, is in charge of the liquid portion of the body. And then the third chakra, the Manipur chakra, is in charge of the luminous or light portion. So it's becoming more subtle as they go up. And then the heart chakra, the fourth chakra, is in charge of the aerial faculty, air, which makes total sense because we've got the lungs there. And then the Vishuddha chakra is the ethereal, controls the ethereal factor. And this whole express universe, the yogis call it the quinquelemental universe. It's made up of 5 fundamental factors. Everything with physical expression is a combination of solid, liquid, luminous, aerial, and ethereal. And so those 5 fundamental factors are related with, so when we purify those chakras, they purify those qualities of the body, the solid factor, liquid factor, aerial, luminous factor, aerial factor, ethereal. And then the two of the 7 that are in the head, the Agyan chakra, the 6th chakra, and the top one, the Sahasrara chakra, those are purely psychic and psychospiritual. They don't have, they're not related purely with one of those fundamental factors, although they control all the lower chakras. But like building a house, you have to start with the foundation. You need a good, strong foundation. You can't just put a glorious flag on the top and then a big windstorm will blow the whole thing down. It needs a firm foundation. So all the chakras need to be developed all along the way. And so so that controls, that looks after certain levels of the body. And then there are certain personality traits related with those chakras, which we can get to. But if you have any questions or we need to review something, we can do that.
Yeah, one of my questions is just, would that also then relate to the elements when you talk about solid, liquid, like, you know, the root chakra, you know, being connected to the earth element, you know, sacral chakra, you know, being connected to water element? Like, do you look at it that way too?
Most certainly.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what would you say? So up here would probably be space, I'm assuming, if you get up into those psychic centers, or would it really stop at that throat chakra?
Well, they said that this, from what I understand and what I've been told, that this Vishuddha chakra controls that ethereal sphere, which would be looked upon as kind of like space. And then these next ones are going beyond physicality,
Okay.
going beyond the physical.
Okay. So it'd be your root chakra is earth, your sacral chakra, which is it's Svadhisthana. Yeah, that is your water element. Yeah. And then the solar plexus, which what is it? That's Muladhara, is that right?
Yeah, Manipura.
Manipura. Thank you. Yeah. I'm like, I sort of know the Sanskrit. I sort of don't.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, I'm getting it. So that would be fire.
That would, yeah, luminous or fire. The navel's the hottest part of the body.
Yep, which makes sense because in Ayurveda, of course, it's connected to your Agni, which is your digestive fire.
Right. And Agni Sarmudra in yoga is when you take the fingers and press in at the navel point. It's an actual digestive chakra. It's a mudra for good digestion.
Wow. Okay.
It's called Agni Sarmudra, which is what you're talking about with Ayurveda, that Agni means fire.
Beautiful. And then your heart chakra would be air.
Aerial. Yep. Aerial.
Air. Okay. And then the luminous part you were talking about in the throat chakra, that would be your space or your ether.
Right. Ether factor.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was perfect. The only thing, and I know people feel differently about this, and I'm good with it. What I understand is that the solar plexus is the heart chakra, not the Manipur chakra. But I know people, there's two different, that is definitely split out there. And that's okay. We'll figure it out as a humanity. I'm good with it. But just so, because people may see in literature, if you Google it, some people say it's the Manipur chakra at the navel point. Other people say the solar plexus is at the heart, at the Anahata chakra.
That's interesting. Well, and one of the things that I've been really focused on with my community this year is the high heart chakra, which is at the thymus gland, which is known as the seat of the soul. So that area is really opening up right now for our whole collective. With the age of Aquarius, it's actually activating your high heart chakra. So there's like a whole, if your heart chakra is this green aerial energy that you're talking about, there's this turquoise energy here that's like almost like I see it clairvoyantly as like a channel. It's like where your throat chakra and your heart chakra meet together. They make this turquoise color, and that seed of the soul is about accessing your soul purpose and that higher compassion that you can reach in different states of meditative awareness. So there's like a whole thing with that too. So I definitely buy in more that the solar plexus is exactly where it is. It's that Manipura chakra. And then I think your heart is really up here and connected to that high heart, which is your soul purpose energy, and really where you sit, where the observer sits, who's watching all of this, that consciousness of the collective humanity that's sitting in that space. So interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and so, but what we all agree on is that there's a subtle faculty within our physical framework, and which has an extremely important role and a guiding role as to how we behave and what we do and how we perceive ourselves and perceive others, and it's quite practical, actually.
I agree. I'm going to interrupt you just to invite everybody who's watching. You're welcome to ask questions for Satyam today, and you can throw them into the chat box, or if you have stories or comments or anything you want to share, you can do that as well. I just wanted to throw that out there because we've had some new people join here in the last few minutes. So just so you guys know, you can use that chat box. I'll be moderating it. But anyways, so yes, keep going. I'm loving this. I could talk about chakras all day, so I love this.
So then we come to this aspect of biopsychology, right? We've established that there's the existence of an invisible part of our human personality, that the invisible mind is part of that's established. And then we've looked at that, okay, then we've got these psychic energy centers known as chakras, and that we outlined and looked into. And then we come into this point of biopsychology, and it's like, well, what the heck is biopsychology? There's a term in Sanskrit known as vrittis, VRTTIS, and what they are human tendencies, are human inclinations. Fear, jealousy, shyness, love, compassion, greed, self-destruction, all different types of things. That the mind has all different types of tendencies, And those are related with different chakra points. And so these vrittis, or mental propensities, or psychic propensities, or tendencies, or mental inclinations, can become out of control if the chakra is imbalanced, and come very much in control if the chakra is contained. And so through meditation, through the yogic lifestyle, we can refine those and make those chakras balanced. And those are related with the chakras and the glandular secretions, the glands that are around the chakras. And the most obvious one is if you say, because they're affected by a variety of things is like alcohol, for instance. It totally sets the chakra way out. It gives way to all the lower, cruder propensities. It excites those things. That's why the yogis would be like, no, 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 be careful about that one, because it's not just that you feel a little bit lightheaded. All those propensities that relate with those chakra points that you're working to harness, so you can rise up the ladder of get the mind to the higher chakras. Those things become unleashed, and and we see expressions of this. I know some people say, well, it's the person, it's not the alcohol. I've heard that expression with certain activities, which I don't want to get into that whole conversation now. But even if you don't compare two people, if you compare the same person with the alcohol, without the alcohol, their tendency will be different. So that's because it's activating certain aspects of that chakra point, which make it which lead the body in a degrading into a state of degradation. So and this is something that we're going to have to explore more as a humanity. Like they say that, for instance, shyness is related with the Manipur chakra. So if you do physical postures, all the yoga postures are based on chakras and based on glands, putting pressure on a gland, taking pressure off of a gland, and ultimately balancing it. And that refines the human personality. And meditation takes it a step deeper. And so they say that, okay, if someone has like a fear of public speaking, that if you strengthen your Manipur chakra, then that will, you'll overcome that fear. That shyness will dissipate. It won't be quite so dominant in that personality. And so then we become there. It makes the very interesting look of just how, so yoga is no longer then just about becoming more flexible. It's becoming refined, and refined on levels that we're not even aware about. And it's the old story that, and we've talked about this before, when people all come into yoga class, there's a lot of chit chat, a lot of talking, and everybody's talking. And at the end of class, quiet. People are very much mentally attuned, and their mind became more subtle, because human experience is dynamic. We're not static. It's not like we're Lego pieces. No, we're constant state of transformation. If we're not becoming more refined, we're becoming more degenerated. There's no sense of just putting the whole thing on freeze. Our thoughts, our words, our food, our meditation, that's constantly changing our whole human personality. And so that's why the yogis like, be careful about your day. Be careful about everything in your day. What you think, what you eat, what you drink, who you interact with, how the interaction goes, everything, because it all has a very dynamic effect on who we become. And it's ultimately, it all affects our psychic body and these chakra points, which have a big effect on on the human personality. So
that's so interesting, because for the August transmission from the collective, one of the things that they said this month was that there's a heightened emphasis on your choices in every single moment of every day to be positively polarized or negatively polarized, from what you choose to eat, what you choose to watch, what you choose to say, though we have these choices. And you're so spot on with what you're saying about the chakras and this idea of biopsychology, because as a clairvoyant, I can tell you, when you make those choices, your energy field changes directly in that moment. It changes, and you can feel it in your own linear reality and your own physical awareness by how your body feels, by how you feel emotionally, right? I mean, that's just like you're saying with the alcohol piece. It does change your structure almost instantaneously by bringing that lower vibrational. And alcohol doesn't have to be low vibration. If you're creating an alcohol that's, this beautiful, process of ritualization or purification or whatever you're doing with it, it can be one kind of intention. But if you're just, taking something like that in, it does in fact change your energetic structure, like you're saying. And it's more important now, more than ever before, to look at what your choices are in each moment, because those choices are directly impacting your energy field, which eventually manifests into your physical body.
Yeah. And in your life, and in your life, you'll say things to people, you'll make selections, you'll make choices that will, that are extremely impactful, very impactful.
Very much so. We have a really great question that kind of is a good segue with what we're talking about. Olivia says, hi, Satyam. She says, can you talk a bit about clearing blocks in the chakras? I find yoga, Tai Chi, massage, acupuncture, and other practices helpful. So what are your thoughts about, removing blocks from chakras?
Right. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. One aspect of the chakra system that we did not talk about, we talked about the chakras and the nadis, but there's something that needs to rise up from the base chakra to the crown chakra, right? And that is known as the Kundalini. And it's known as the sleeping consciousness. And that Kundalini rises up. And it's true, it can get blocked at various chakra points. Ultimately, you want it to come up from the tailbone, from that Muladhara chakra, and in meditation to bring it all the way up. And one can feel that vibration while it's rising. And so our lifestyle choices and our goals in our meditation have a huge impact on that. Like alcohol is a blockade. That because that Svanisthana, that Muladhara chakra, those things are going to get totally engaged, and the mind will be down in that lower portion. According to the yogic theory, the two lower chakra points, Muladhara and Mani and the Svanisthana, are tamasic, means static. They're and then the middle one, the third chakra point, is Manipur, and that's like mutative or rajasic. And they're all important, but you don't want to have everything in the lower chakras all the time. The lower chakras are important for creating that base. And then the Anahat chakra, the fourth chakra, is the beginning of the first of the sentient chakras all the way on up, or sattvic. And so what Olivia's question is, that is straight on, that this idea of blocking, you don't want to block the Kundalini from allowing it to rise up to those higher chakras. And those blockages can be psychological, they can be physical, like from a physical substance. And ultimately, I suppose they can be spiritual too. And we just need, the more we can refine ourselves, refine our diet, refine our expressions, refine our meditative techniques, refine our physical yoga practice, then that helps clear up all those blockages. And in due course, maybe we'll have that better mapped out exactly, but the basic idea is the more purifying elements you invite into your life, those blockages will dissipate. I wish I had, a perfect recipe, a teaspoon of this and a tablespoon of that, and that clears up. But I can't say what's going to unblock it exactly. But the more refinement goes on, the more fluid, the more that Kundalini will rise up, especially if we think high thoughts throughout the day. If we're able to keep the mind up throughout the day and not get dragged down, what is our psychic occupation throughout the day? That also has a big effect on which chakra point is being vibrated.
Yeah, well, I agree. And I think it's worth noting, like, you can get really tangled up in looking at your chakras and trying to understand them, and what's open and what's closed and what's blocked and what's clockwise and what's counterclockwise. You can get all caught up in that. And, I think it's really important to note that it's better or more easeful to just do the physical practices of yoga, to do the spiritual practices of meditation, to move out energy, and, like you're saying, to refine your energy field through your diet, through your lifestyle, through your yoga practice. that is more easeful than trying to figure it all out. It can be a lot of fun to look at all of that stuff, but it's my experience of, 20 years of reading people clairvoyantly, that your chakras change a lot all the time, moving around and changing based on this is an experiential journey we're on, and every experience you have is like shifting and altering your energy centers. And so just like what you're saying, Satyam, is like the more that you can just refine how you're living and refine your body, the more you're going to clear those energy fields and be able to allow that Kundalini to rise up. And so it's easy to get caught up in all that other stuff. And I think it's worth saying, like, don't. And I also, this is totally me on my soapbox, and I'm going to try not to go on a tangent about it, but, I think energy healing is fabulous. But if somebody else moves your energy, you ultimately run the risk of that energy coming right back, because it's your patterns and behaviors. So through your yoga practice, through your meditation practice, you're actually shifting and changing the programs and the inherited genetic structures you have inside your body, both etheric and linear DNA and RNA. And when you do that, you're going to change something permanently to open that Kundalini, versus just trying to constantly have your energy changed, because it changes all the time. So that's my little soapbox, but I just wanted to throw that in.
Those are both beautifully stated, both points. The first point being that refinement, that actually someone can achieve the highest state of realization and not have any intellectual understanding about Kundalini and chakras, but it all worked. They did it by refinement of mind and by refinement of lifestyle and by love and by compassion. Whereas someone might become very professorial about which chakras and which direction they spin, but their mind may be in the gutter and they may not be totally blocked up. So it's not an intellectual pursuit; it's a lifestyle, spiritual pursuit. And so I very much appreciate what you're saying. We should be aware about it, but it shouldn't be over intellectualized, because intellectualization will create blockages, not clear it up if you're not doing the practices, which is what you said.
Agreed.
And I'm right there with you also on the healing component. And that ultimately the yogi said there's no shortcut. You gotta, you've come here, you were born for a reason, and you got to do the work. You can't have it done by someone else. People can help, people can guide, but ultimately you got to take ownership of it and kind of run with it. You got to do it. And so I very much appreciate it. And now those will be permanent, like what you said. Those will be permanent degrees of advancement and of evolution and transformation that I fully support what you were just saying.
Yep. And Olivia, you said here, she's got another comment. She said she's found really big issues like child abuse, for example, were best addressed working with a therapist while also focusing on each chakra, from one on up, clearing the physical, then the emotional, then the etheric. And yes, Olivia, I would agree. Like it's great to have a partner to help you work through that energy. I just don't want folks to get caught up in what's blocked and what's not. I think there's a lot in the metaphysical community of getting caught up in what is what. And yes, looking at it and clearing the physical, the energetic, the etheric, working through that with a partner is definitely good for those bigger issues. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to moving energy. And the best way to do that is to move your physical body, I think.
Right. Yeah. No. And I also very much appreciate what you said, that we all need life coaching or teaching at certain, unless one's born as a spiritual genius, that they don't need any practice. There are very few people ever born like that. I know I'm not one of them, that I need all the help I can get. And so, but then you have to internalize that, but we need different coaches. And in yoga, there's acharyas, there are meditation teachers that help. But they can't do your meditation for you, but they can guide. And so what Olivia is saying, I very much appreciate it. There's certain issues, familial issues, childhood issues, seek out, use those professionals and move with their guidance. Absolutely.
Yep. So true. So keep your questions coming if you guys have any more. And where do we go now? Where do we go from here?
Right. That's a good question. Where do we go from here? Well, how about this? We were talking about the various propensities and the chakra points. And about the propensities, meaning, or the Sanskrit word is vrittis, and it might be shyness or fear or greed or mindness, mamata, what the yogis say, mindness. A mother has mindness for a child. She feels that that child is mine. She identifies more, especially with the younger the child, the more intense the feeling is that, she'll put herself in harm's way so that the child's not harmed, because the mindness, the I feeling is so linked with that young infant. So all these qualities, there's all these tendencies of mind. And they say at present, there are 50 propensities, 50 human propensities, 50 tendencies of mind, of this fear, this shyness. And those propensities have expression internally and externally. You can be angry and just think about anger, or it can have an external expression. Everything has internal and external expression. And then it can be focused in the 10 directions: north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, southwest, south, whatever, those 8 plus up and down. So that's 10 directions, internally, externally, 2 more, and 50 propensities. So you take that 50, you multiply it by 2, you get 100, that internal, external. Then you got 100. And then you have the 10 directions, 10 times 100, 1,000. And that's that 1,000-petaled lotus at the crown chakra, the 1,000 propensities, the 1,000 directions of the human mind. And that's what that crown chakra is about, the 1,000-petaled lotus. That is indicative of all those propensities in all the different ways and directions that they can be exercised. And ultimately we have to take those 1,000 and put it to the one universal cosmic ideal. And that's like the top of the pinball machine in yoga. That's like when you do that, all the bells and whistles go off. And speaking of bells and whistles, but everything is no one goes from 0 to 100 in one shot. It's all a continuum. And as that Kundalini rises up, there's different vibrations we'll feel as it passes through the various chakra points. Physical vibrations, sounds, it's all internalized. If we express it externally, we lose that psychic concentration. But the yogis talk about the various sounds and vibrations one will feel in their meditation. And as that Kundalini rises up, and it's not something that we're imposing, it's actually an effect that's happening due to the rising of that energy. And it's very difficult people want to burst out, but you can't let it burst out. You have to keep that mind internalized, focused. And then if you burst out, it's kind of like a leaky tire. The Kundalini can't rise anymore. You've got to keep the physical structure very much contained, and that Kundalini will rise up and ultimately reach that crown petal chakra. So, but that's that little 50 by 2 by 10 experience, and that we do what we can with it. We should be very natural. We should not, you goad the mind, but we should not, there's a difference between meditation and imagining. And we should be doing the meditative process. And when you're doing that meditative process, when 2 things happen. One, when you're doing your meditation, you feel some vibration, some type of energy where it makes you sit up taller, and that you feel some type of force, and it's a sweet feeling. And then the other thing would be that there should be some type of transformation in one's day-to-day life, right? You don't finish your meditation and go out to the local, I don't even want to say it, whatever that local thing is, that is probably where not upstanding people go, whatever that may be. That when the mind is refined, one's life choices will be refined. So someone can't say that, oh, I've realized everything in life, and then, live a life where you're drowning in the sewer. There's something's not simpatico there. It's not working. So that's why the yogis always say, okay, always listen to what someone says, but if you really want their quality of mind, watch how they behave. Because that behavior is reflection of their quality of mind, of their meditative endeavor. It's not like, you can't say that your mind is with the stars when you're, rolling around in the dirt. The 2 don't work. So if that meditation, then that's the effect that you can, if when you're honest with yourself, you can feel what kind of vibrational effect you're feeling in your meditation, how the chakras are being vibrated, and what realization you have. And then it's matched by some type of refinement in lifestyle. And when it'll be, that refinement will be very natural. Just the same way that a child who's 6 loves the sandbox, but they don't grow out of the sandbox stage just because they're getting older. It's because of the development of mind. And those people, sometimes people come into situations where they for whatever reason, they don't develop this, and they'll like those same things. A 55-year-old will like the same thing that he liked when he was 8. It has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with changing quality of mind. And when you grow out of the sandbox, the person isn't crying, oh, I don't like the sandbox anymore. No, they're ready for the next thing, and they're embracing that next thing. And the sandbox, that's a past memory. Yeah. And so like that was, because sometimes people think, well, I like my life the way it is. I don't want to refine it. I'm quite happy the way I am. And for that matter, I don't want to do meditation. I don't want, because I'm happy. This is good for me now. But what people don't realize is that when the mind changes, you'll be happy with the next thing. And you'll find that that thing makes you happier than the previous happy. And you'll think, oh, this is good. Let me climb that ladder of refinement. But from the outside, other people like, oh, Johnny doesn't do this anymore. Johnny doesn't do that anymore. Johnny's a dull boy. But Johnny's feeling very peaceful and sweet inside, and just life habits change. And it's very natural and very comfortable for the person undergoing it. Other people might say, what happened to that person? We used to pal around at 2:00 in the morning on Friday nights, and but no, just change of mind, change of lifestyle, and that brings a more subtle and more sweet feeling, more peaceful feeling.
Yep. So well said. I mean, I've experienced, I mean, I think we've all lived it to a certain degree, however, but I know for me, I've definitely lived it. My lifestyle is very different today than it was. And it's not even about like, oh, I've stopped partying. It's this idea of, consciousness, and the more aware, conscious, the more you learn, the more you experience, the more you choose to make different choices. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're saying and pointing out directly to everyone, because we are in the process of creating a new reality for all of us, as our collective consciousness is shifting. And so I think, this is the time where that refinement is really important, and being able to look at what you truly value and where you're headed. So I just love it. I feel like we could talk about this in many, 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 many segments. Yeah. So, and I'm wondering, because I'm looking at our time and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm wondering if you have a story for us today.
I do have a story. Yeah, that I definitely appreciate that. Just to dovetail into what you were just saying about this change, the main thing is, as the chakras become developed, we change our perception of who we are and what is our relation with everything around us. And which is, not to go further into that now, but this idea of consciousness as a people, as a collective, as individuals. And I'm spot on with you there on that. That is the big journey, and there's something to really embrace and value. But I do. So we're kind of at the end here, and I have a little story here. It's a simple story, but hopefully may have some takeaway from it. There was a king, and he was ruling over his kingdom, and he thought he was a pretty good king, but he had really, really good advisors. And the advisors, and the people were happy in the kingdom, and the advisors were good at, they were thinking that we have a nice king, but he's not all that sharp. They were not thinking that he was really very sharp. So they would try to present things to the king to make it obvious that he'll make the right choice, and give the king all the credit, but that the advisors were making sure that nothing got derailed. And they had a very good kingdom. The people were happy. And so when the king said one day, let's have an art contest, everybody in the kingdom should draw something, and let's see who can draw the most peaceful, beautiful drawing. And so immediately the courtiers went out through all the 10 directions and said, the king wants to have an art contest. everybody, so young and old, everybody started drawing. And they said, not only that, but there'll be a prize, and one piece will be selected as the most beautiful, the most peaceful of what is peace. So everybody's drawing. Everybody, they had like, 2 weeks. And then the people went around, the courtiers went around on horseback and collected a massive stack of artwork. And they were like, okay, we need, all the advisors gathered and say, we need to make sure that he chooses the best one, because there's going to be a grand gathering. Everybody's going to come, and the king should not make a bad choice. It will look bad. So they told the king, we're going to cycle through the thousands and tens of thousands that came in, and we'll give you the final choice. And the king thought, okay, wonderful. That's great. And so they went through, they made the piles, and they finally brought it down to 2. And they thought, here are the final 2. And they made a stark difference. There was one that was very, very sweet and beautiful. Everything was looking great. Beautiful sky. Thought, he'll certainly choose this one. And the other one was, well, they thought, this is there's nothing peaceful about this. He can't choose that one. It'll be clear. So they presented it and they said, king, here's the final 2. And everybody came. And the king, they gave him what they thought would be the lesser artwork. And the king picked it up. And he was horrified. And he was appalled that this even made it that far. And just when he was about to toss it aside, and the advisor would think, okay, he's going to toss it aside and he'll pick the good one, he said, this is the winner. And it was lightning bolts and thunderbolts and ravens and skeletons and dark forces all over the place. And there was a lake, and they thought, how could he have chosen this one? It's all about death and destruction and gloom and doom. And how did he choose this one? And so they said to the king, why? He said, I'm going to tell you. It's true, there's a raven eating a varmint over there, and that there's skeletons and there's all sorts of death and destruction. But if you see that lake in the middle with the rain pouring down and smacking up all over the place, then there's a little rock alcove in that lake. And then within that little rock alcove, there's a little nest. And within that little nest, there's a tiny little bird. And that bird is perfectly calm and peaceful. And he said, that's what peace is. That there'll always be all sorts of commotion around you. But if you can find peace despite the commotion, that's real peace. And that's why I chose this one, the perfect depiction of peace. And they were like, our king's smarter than we thought. So anyway, that's where the world is a busy place, but find your peace and transmit it and broadcast it and be a lighthouse for it wherever you go.
Oh, Satyam, I just love you so much.
Great to be here with you, Lisa.
So much.
Thank you for creating such a wonderful space for us all to talk and communicate.
Yes, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for everything. I feel like there's so much more to dive into what you said. So, we'll continue those conversations. And thank you to everybody who's watching. So much love to all of you. We are back at 3:30 Mountain Time with Becky Prater to talk about co-creating a new earth. And we also have a really great lineup tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. So thank you, Satyam, and we will see you soon. And thank you to everybody, and have an amazing day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.